Factsverse presents Man exploring abandoned wildlife park finds a huge shark floating in a tank like a ghost. Before we get into this very strange story, help us spread the word about Factsverse by clicking that like button. Also be sure to subscribe and click the notification bell so you don't miss our future videos. The Australian Wildlife Wonderland Park in Bass, Victoria was once a popular place to visit. Tourists from all over the world would visit the park, and there were plenty of things to see inside the park, so when it closed in 2012, people were pretty upset about it. Suddenly, they had to find a new place to enjoy the wonders of the wildlife that we share on our planet. Each year, over 1 million people visited the park. It was home to over 600 animals, including dingoes, kangaroos, koalas, wallabies, crocodiles, and wombats. If a person wanted a real down-under experience, that was the place to go. Like most people, Luke McPherson grew up visiting this park. Every year, his parents would take him to see and learn what they could about the animals on display. When the park closed, he, like most people, was devastated. Not only did he no longer get to see the animals, it felt as though he was losing an important part of his childhood. As an adult, Luke became an urban explorer, and one of his favorite things to do was to explore places that once were but are no longer. After the Australian Wildlife Wonderland Park had been closed for a while, he decided it might be an amazing place to go explore. He was dying to find out what was left behind after the doors were forced to close. According to reports, the park closed when it was discovered that the owners were in breach of the Australian Wildlife Act. When the park closed, the animals were sent to other parks, or they were sold as pets. Some were sent to the Royal Society for the Prevention to Cruelty to Animals. With the park being closed, Luke wanted to see what, if anything, was left behind. When Luke entered the park, it was abandoned entirely. Most of the rooms showed significant signs of decay. Many had been vandalized with graffiti. There was trash littering the ground, and it was in a horrible state. Luke says it broke his heart to see the state that the park was in. It wasn't until he saw Rosie that his heart truly broke. When Luke walked into a room, he saw an incredible sight. Floating in a murky green tank of water was Rosie, a 15.6-foot great white shark that had been taxidermied. Rosie was captured in 1998 in a tuna fishing net in South Australia. Sadly, Rosie's injuries were severe and she didn't survive. The officials of the Australian Wildlife Wonderland Park decided to do something. Rather than having her destroyed, they wanted to put her body on display on a temporary basis. They preserved her in chemicals that would allow her to be on public display. The plan was for the park to later send her to museums and other places so that people from all over the world could get an up-close and personal look at a great white shark. When Rosie's body was preserved, they didn't remove her intestines the way they normally would with a taxidermy procedure. Because of this, her body is completely solid, in near-perfect condition. When the park was shut down, all the live animals were moved, but they left Rosie behind. When the park was shut down, proper precautions were never made to keep people out. When vandals came into the park, they smashed the tank of formaldehyde that she was floating in. And that meant that she was no longer submerged in the liquid, keeping her in great shape. And that broke Luke's heart. He couldn't believe people would destroy something so amazing. Rosie's future did not look good. If she was left in that state, the liquid that would keep her preserved would eventually evaporate. If that happened, her condition would continually get even worse. Eventually, she'd need to be destroyed. When Luke saw Rosie and the state that she was in, he decided to try and raise some money. He wanted to raise enough to have Rosie moved to a more secure area where she could remain completely submerged and intact. He posted a video on YouTube trying to raise the money to get Rosie out of the park as quickly as possible. So far, Rosie still remains in a partially full tank in the abandoned park. Only time will tell if Luke will raise the money that he needs to move the shark to a more secure location. He believes people deserve to see Rosie for years to come. If he can come up with the cash, Rosie might have a chance. Subscribe for more.